Well, hello out there in YouTube land, everybody. This is Jay Klodek. The subject of tonight's video is not so much meant for those of you that already build models, but rather it's intended for those of you that might be looking for gift ideas to buy for your loved ones for either this Christmas or whenever, birthdays, parties, other holidays, for instance. I worked in the hobby retail field for about 9 years at a local hobby shop, and I've fielded a lot of questions every year from customers. They wanted to know what would be good model kits to get for somebody, and well, first thing I tell them is a lot of that's going to depend on who you are buying kits for. If you're buying a model kit for a husband or even possibly a wife, you probably might want to gear your purchase towards something a little different compared to buying for somebody who might be considerably younger than that, a child or a young child or a high school student, something like that. Sitting in front of you are some various examples of model kits that are currently available. Pretty much a lot of things are covered, everything from World War II aircraft to relatively modern aircraft. We've got stuff from the classic space race. We've got science fiction aircraft. We've even got licensed science fiction model kit subjects from Star Trek and Star Wars. We've also got car models. Models that you don't see pictured, but which are also available, include Navy ships, either the tall mast-sailed Navy ships like you see in Pirates of the Caribbean, or more modern ships such as aircraft carriers, battleships, that sort of thing. There's also even armor models for tanks, armor personnel carriers. Who knows? You might want to consider buying a gift for a veteran or somebody who's considering going into the military. But in any event, let's get started. So, let's talk about model kit scale. What is model kit scale? Well, model kit scale is specifically how big a model kit is in relation to the full-size object. Sitting in front of you are two Supermarine Spitfire model kits. Both are from a company called Airfix. One is 172 scale, one is 148 scale. Price-wise, the bigger model is obviously going to cost more than the smaller one. What does 172 and what does 148 mean? Well, the number basically means is that if you take 48 of these models built and stack them nose to tail or wingtip to wingtip, they would equal the length of the full-size airplane or the wingspan of the full-size airplane. 172 scale means that if you do the same thing with 72 of these models stacked nose to tail, you would get you would equal the length of one full-size Supermarine Spitfire. Now, how big would they look like when they're built? Well, this is an example of a 172 scale Spitfire. And here is an example of a 148 scale Spitfire. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, Jay, I'm trying to buy, that's all well and good, but I'm trying to buy a model kit for somebody for Christmas. Why don't I just get the bigger one? Because the bigger one is cooler. Well, you could, but generally the bigger kits are going to cost more than the smaller kits. Plus also, there's a certain level of complication involved with larger kits. As you notice by this one, it's got an open cockpit. A little more detail that I had to put into it. The 172 scale one, there's fewer parts involved. So If you're buying for somebody who's a relative novice, it would probably be better to go for a smaller scale kit than a larger scale kit. Plus also, it is a little more cost effective as well. I mean, in the case of this little Spitfire right here, I only paid, well, under $10 for it. I think it was about $9 at the time. Whereas this one costed me about $25 to purchase. So, as you'll find out in a few minutes, the cost of the kit is only one factor to consider in regards to how much money you're looking to spend to purchase a gift for somebody to get them involved in a new hobby like this. One thing I will also mention too regarding scale is that not every model kit necessarily has a scale listed. For instance, science fiction model kits like this Star Wars X-Wing fighter kit that you see in front of you, this one does not have a scale listed on the box. I know what the scale is of this model, but say you're at a store and you want to figure out how big it is. Well, pretty much most of the better manufactured model kits out there do have a listing on the side of some of the various specs. For instance, the length of this kit is 8 and 9/16 inches long, so it's about 3/4 of a foot long. Number of pieces, 38. Now, some of the more recent science fiction model kits to come along, a few of them are starting to put scales on the boxes, but at the same time too, usually if you're purchasing science fiction model kits, usually the scales tend to jump all over the place. So in that regard, I would say scale is maybe not quite as important as several other factors, specifically cost, size of the model kit, and how easy the model kit is to build. So, something to keep in mind. Okay, so you've made the decision that you do want to go with a specific scale of model kit to get for somebody as a gift. What one do you go with? Well, there are plenty of options out there. For instance, for a subject like a Spitfire, there are plenty of companies that make this model. Some aircraft, the choices are not as concrete. There are kits available in all price ranges, but probably the most important thing to consider if you're buying a kit for a first-time modeler is what you think their skill level is going to be when they work on it. So if you're buying something for an 8 to 10-year-old kid, it's probably not going to... You're probably not going to buy exactly the same subject that you were for somebody who is in his 20s or 30s. Airfix Spitfire right here. It's a good model kit. Little difficult to build. If I was purchasing for a wee lad that was interested in the Battle of Britain, I probably would not purchase this kit. Instead, I might be more likely to purchase this kit instead, which is another Spitfire. But this one is a snap-together model kit. Doesn't have as many parts. Cockpit can't be opened, but it's very easy to do. Pegasus is a good company. They even make these easy snap model kits. They even give you the option of applying water slide decals to the model just like an adult would. Or for the younger, less experienced kids, they have stickers that you can apply instead of decals. But this would be a good subject to get. Snap-together models are also good for a lot of beginning adults. I mean, the detail on one of these Pegasus kits, I mean, this kit's got some small inaccuracies, but for a very first subject, it's not a bad idea if somebody wants to do a painting exercise. Other examples of snap-together kits that can be purchased for somebody who is less experienced or a little young. These Star Wars kits that Revell is doing, the parts in them are pre-painted. You can see it's got the red striping on the wings. The fuselage has also got stripes. There we go. Of course, an adult may not want to build a pre-painted model, but pre-painted models can always be painted over once again. The only drawback I've found with pre-painted models is they're good for instant gratification, but well, if this is something that Santa's going to bring to somebody on Christmas Day, it's probably going to keep them occupied for maybe 1 to 2 hours if they work slow, 30 minutes if they work relatively quick, and then it's just going to be a toy that they just play with until it breaks. If you want them to work on something longer, a glue-together kit is probably going to be a better option, although glue-together kits that require paint to paint them do have some other possible problems. But Snap Together is a good possible option. It's worth considering. Another criteria that you can use to determine whether a model kit might be a good fit for somebody as a gift is skill level. Most every kit that is currently available on the market these days, a lot of them typically have a skill level number listed on the box somewhere. Some model kits don't necessarily have that, usually the foreign ones. The Snap-Tide X-Wing Fighter right here, for instance, it is skill level 1, meaning no painting, no gluing, easy snap assembly. Most glue-together kits are considered skill level 2, skill level 3, thereabouts. Now, the tricky bit is not every model company uses necessarily exactly the same skill level. In this country, model kits that are made by Revell USA, AMT Ertl, Polar Lights, Mobius, typically they go by a 3 skill level system: 1 easy, 2 medium, middle of the road, 3 hard, depending on whether it's got a lot of parts or whether it's got a difficult assembly or difficult painting steps. Where it gets a little interesting is, if you notice at the bottom of the stack right here, I've got another Revell kit. This is a Su-37 Berkut, which was a Russian experimental fighter plane from about a decade ago. Now, if you notice, it's made by Revell. This Marine helicopter is made by Revell. The helicopter has got a skill level 2, and the Berkut jet fighter, which is supposedly should be a little easier to build than a helicopter, has got a skill level 3. Well, Revell of Germany, yeah, this kit right here is made by a European division of Revell called Revell of Germany, and they go by a 5 skill level system. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Therefore, a skill level 3 kit from Revell of Germany is going to be equivalent to a skill level 2 kit from Revell USA. The other thing I've found too about Revell USA kits, in the case of this helicopter, it says skill level 2, but I wouldn't recommend getting a helicopter kit for a relative raw beginner, because those rotor blades, they're very delicate, they're easy to break. I consider this more like a skill level 2.5. To complicate matters further, Airfix in the UK, they have a skill level system as well. They've only got 4 levels, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, car models are a possible good option for a lot of people. Price range, most car models tend to run about $20 to $30 for 1/24th, 1/25th scale car kits. The one on top right here is a model kit from AMT Corporation, and this one's a little different from the one down below, made by Revell. This would be a good example of a model kit for a relative novice. AMT has got a series of kits referred to as showroom replicas. And on the back here, they also show the parts layout in this black and white diagram. Looking at the parts layout, you'll notice that the hood is kind of covered over, and it's got a one-piece chassis. This is a relatively low parts count. It's a glue-together kit, but what we call this in the car model building world is a curbside, meaning that the car has got a full interior with seats, dashboard, steering wheel, etc., but it doesn't have any engine detail in it. As a result, it can be built a lot faster than a model kit, where you do have to build the engine, the transmission, the drivetrain, glue everything onto the chassis. So this is one possible option to consider for a gearhead who might be not as experienced at model building, but wants to get into the plastic building hobby. By comparison, this Chevy Nova right here from Revell, this is your standard run-of-the-mill full-bore model kit. Got a lot of parts. Looking at the box, number of pieces, 111 pieces. Paint's got to be purchased for all these pieces. Same thing with the AMT kit. The AMT kit is not pre-painted, although there are some pre-paints that you can get from the Revell line that are available in their snap-together range. But at the same time, too, most car models, they fit together pretty well, and most anybody who's ever been around a car can figure out what parts go where. You're thinking to yourself, well, gee, thank you, Jay. You've given me everything I need to know to buy a good model kit. Not so fast. You also have to consider tool selection for what you're going to buy, because a model kit is not like a Lego set. You can't just necessarily assemble it, unless it's a pre-painted snap-type model, in which case then the parts could be pulled off the trees and built within a day. But tool selection, having a budget to purchase model tools is always a good idea. Let's start with the basics. This is a hobby knife, also referred to as an X-Acto knife. This particular one, you can take the knife blade off and change it if the blade gets dull. For younger kids, this is probably not that good an idea of something to get, unless you've got parental supervision to teach the child how to use it properly. In which case, sprue cutters would be a better option to get. Unless you're getting a snap-together model, glue selection, also very important. You could go with tube glue, like the stuff that used to give us headaches in high school. There are non-toxic glue varieties out there now, but they don't stick as good. As with any glue, make sure you use with adequate ventilation. If you go with the tube glue, there's also the less messy liquid glue varieties, such as Ambroid Pro Weld, which is a glue of choice. It's a plastic solvent cement. You brush a little on each part, you stick them together, it actually welds the plastic into one piece. The one in the center here is super glue. Glues the parts together very well, regardless of the material. It can be used to glue metal to plastic. It can also be used to glue fingers to the table if one is not careful. So be aware that this can be a little messy. You want to be careful that whoever you're getting the model for is not going to ruin somebody's furniture in the process. One possible optional item you can get would be some forms of clamps to clamp parts together until the glue joints dry, like so. Paint brushes, very, very important. It's always a good idea to consider getting a selection of paint brushes for a budding modeler if they're going to start out with model kits that they have to paint. As to how much all this costs, well, glue, tube type, you can usually get a tube of glue for under $2. If it's bottled super glue at a hobby shop, usually it's going to cost about maybe $3 to $5 depending on the brand. Plastic welders like this can cost $5, but provided somebody doesn't spill the bottle or let it evaporate, that can last a lot of models right there. And so this is my personal glue of choice for styrene models. Hobby knife can run about $2, maybe $3. Extra blades can run about $1 or $2. By comparison, a sprue cutter, those can cost about $10. But for a less experienced modeler, that's also always a good idea to have one of these. Even for an experienced modeler, it's a good idea to have one of these. That way you're less likely to injure yourself when you're cutting parts off the trees. As for brushes, you can go with the really, really cheap brushes. Although, a set of brushes like that, you can usually get a set of about 3 or 4 brushes, anywhere from $5 to $10. The more expensive brushes are better quality, but if you're getting something for a relative novice, I'd say get them good quality, but you don't have to spend an arm and a leg for a good set of brushes. Let's talk about paint selection. Of course, with most every model kit out there, you are going to have to consider that whoever you're going to buy this kit for is going to need some paint. There's 2 ways to go about it. The ones you see on this side are enamel paints. The ones you see here, these 3 colors, these are acrylic paints. Enamel paints are a standard model staple that's been around almost as long as model kits have been around. These are solvent-based paints. You clean the paint off the brushes using a thinner, such as, well, this is an example of Tester's brush cleaner. It's equivalent to mineral spirits or turpentine. I just get the Tester's standard brush cleaner, simply because I find it's more convenient, plus it has a little less odor than the cheaper thinners out there. These little square bottle testers you can find at most major hobby shops and even some big stores like Michael's or Hobby Lobby. Price-wise, they tend to run about $2 a bottle. These slightly larger bottles, these are also made by Testers. These are Testers Model Master brand. They are also enamel colors. They are fully compatible with these. These are selling for about somewhere in the mid $3 range. Price keeps going up for paint every year, mainly because of EPA guidelines and all that. Not that the paints are necessarily harmful or toxic with normal use, but of course they say don't ingest them, be careful breathing the fumes in a confined area, etc., etc., etc. And then, as I said, you've also got the thinner that you have to consider purchasing, and a bottle about that size is going to run you probably about $7 or $8, I would say. Now, acrylics, on the other hand, such as these 3. This is Tester's Model Master Acro brand. Like I said, it's an acrylic. These are Tamiya acrylics. These are water wash-up paints, meaning when you're done painting, you just clean your brush out in a cup of water, and just let the paints dry about the same as enamels do. The beauty of acrylics is you spill them, usually you can clean up the mess with water, although acrylic paints, you let them dry for about 48 hours, and when they get fully cured after 48 hours, and when that happens, usually you can't take the paint up again if you get them wet. Usually you got to use a hotter solvent to fix a mistake or something like that. Price-wise, as I said, these Testers ones, these are about the same price as the enamels. They go for somewhere in the mid-3 range. The Tamiya acrylic paints I get from my hobby shop for about $2.50 a bottle, I believe. It's been a while since I've had to buy any. But these can be brush painted, they can be airbrushed. Just take some practice to learn how to use them properly. But for a relative beginner or a younger kid, it might be better to start with the acrylics rather than the enamels, although either's got their pros and cons. Yes, you can use enamels with acrylics. You can't mix them together to mix a color, but you can paint one color in enamel and one color in acrylic. In fact, I do that all the time in order to speed the drying time, because what can happen is if you paint this color over this color or white over black and the black is still not fully dry, if it's the same solvent base, you could end up with gray or take the color up again. Whereas if you paint acrylic black over enamel white, you know they're not going to react with one another. So that's something to keep in mind. But be aware that most model kits, you're probably going to require a minimum of 5 colors per model kit. Some colors you can stockpile. I mean, the basic colors you can get would be black, white, silver, maybe yellow, a gray shade, and possibly a green shade. But just keep that in mind. What if you're trying to spend on a budget for a model kit for a gift, keep in mind that the number of colors you might need can vary by quite a bit depending on the subject. I mean, the Spitfire back here, it's got 2 camo colors, the interior color, the instrument panel, black and white undersides. That all adds up pretty quick. So 10 colors of paint at about $3.50 a bottle can run you about $35 very quick. Other tools to consider buying are sanding supplies, because modelers who get more experienced and want to try to make the parts on their models look like an integrated whole, like the Spitfire back here, as opposed to an amalgamation of parts, lower wing section, 2 upper wing sections, left and right fuselage halves, etc. Want to use sandpaper or files to clean up things. This is normal wet or dry sandpaper. Specifically, this is 320 grit sandpaper, which I bought at my local hobby shop. You can also get this at hardware stores. And what I did was I bought a relatively large sheet of sandpaper and cut it down in these little squares. And I've got it stored in my model supply tackle box. So if my paper gets too bad, I just chuck it, get another one, keep going. Usually a big sheet of sandpaper will cost you about $1, and you can cut that into probably about 50 or 60 sheets of this smaller stuff. There's also pre-made sanding sticks that can be purchased. As you can see, all these are used because I buy a tool, I don't store it away. I'm not like Tim Allen. I want to use my tools. So these are some examples of pre-made sanding sticks that can be purchased for probably about $5 to $10 each. Various different grits do different things. I mean, you can use big grits to get rid of nubs on the plastic parts, whereas the finer grits can be used to polish the whole plastic body, get it ready for paint and stuff. This is an example of a Great Plains Easy Touch sander. It uses self-adhesive sandpaper that you stick on it, and this is perfectly good for, well, there's not much use for plastic modeling for this, but I use this for like model rockets and stuff, although there are some big models that sometimes I like to use this on. If there's a big seam I want to take care of relatively quick. Then you've got examples of metal needle files, round, triangular, flat, etc. Incidentally, wives or girlfriends, if you're buying a model for somebody, if you got any old emery boards or nail files that you want to get rid of, just give them to a modeler, and believe me, they'll find a use for them. They're a little coarse for a lot of uses, but they work perfectly well for taking care of those little sprue nubs off of plastic kits I found, and it's a great way to save a little money. So like I said, about $1 for a big sheet of sandpaper that can be cut up. Probably 2 or 3 different grits are a good idea to get. Needle files, they vary in price from about, I would say $2 to $3 each, or you can get a whole file set with about 10 of them for maybe about $10 to $20. The sanding sticks can run anywhere from $2 to $5 depending on where you get them from. Easy Touch sander, the handle costs at about $10. The roll of sandpaper grit costs about $7 or $8, but I can get about probably 20 pieces of this stuff before I have to buy any more. Well, so there you have it. Some ideas worth considering if you wish to buy a model kit for somebody for Christmas, birthday, or whatever. How it all factors in, the prices for the other stuff is going to add to the price of the model kit itself. But the beauty of this hobby is after you purchased a lot of these starter supplies, usually not as much has to be purchased for the second, third, fourth, or fifth kit down the road. Assuming somebody doesn't get frustrated by the first model kit and want to give up the hobby. I mean, that's why it's always a good idea not to necessarily spend a lot of money on the first kit, just in case whomever you're buying it for might not want to continue on with the hobby. And at the same time too, I mean, it all adds up. As I said, this little Spitfire kit back here, this only costs about $9. This is the 172 scale Supermarine Spitfire. Same scale as the built one that I've got displayed right here. But thinners, glues, all that, all the supplies could easily add up to maybe $30 or $40, depending. So there you go. A $10 kit can be a $50 investment compared to a $20 or a $30 kit, which might be anywhere from $80 to $100 total investment to get everything. Other things to keep in mind as well, if you are purchasing a gift that you're going to be mailing to somebody, you might want to liaison with whomever you're buying it for to find out if plastic model hobby is definitely something they want to get involved in. Because the other thing to keep in mind, paints, glues, etc., this stuff, typically you cannot ship it through the mail system unless you ship it by ground because of hazmat restrictions and stuff like that. A safe option worth considering as well, if you think the person you're purchasing a gift for wants to get into the model hobby but they don't know what they want to get, well, safe option, gift card or gift certificate from a local hobby shop, if there is a hobby shop in town. They could also buy supplies online, however, they don't get that. They may not be able to actually shop for what they are looking for in person. They'd have to look at something on the screen, and I usually encourage, when it comes to buying model supplies, going to a local hobby shop, getting in touch with the staff, finding out what supplies are available and such, and getting that personal connection. Stuff can always be purchased on the internet after the initial purchase is made, but believe me, I like going to a local shop if there's one available. If I run out of a specific color or need something relatively quick, as opposed to having to wait anywhere from 2 days to 2 weeks to get something in the mail. But as I said, this is a good hobby worth considering. Hopefully this will have answered any questions that several of you might have for wanting to get model kits as gifts. Good luck. If you have any questions, leave comments. I'll try to answer them. But in the meantime, have a good holiday season, or have a good day wherever you are and whenever you watch this. Until next time, thank you for watching.